Administrations traditionally begin work on a State of the Union months ahead of time. Senior policy advisor Stephen Miller is a key architect of President Trump's speech. David Frum played a similar role in the George W. Bush administration. He's perhaps best known for writing this line in the 2002 State of the Union address.
Iraq continues to flaunt its hostility toward America and to support terror. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
Frum is author of a new book called Trumpocracy: The Corruption of the American Republic. I spoke with him about the process of writing a State of the Union.
Well, a State of the Union is like a moon launch. You pull together pieces from all over the government and bolt them together in what is often a kind of formless monster. I mean, I wrote for the 2002 State of the Union. I wrote sections on agriculture, that most of which was dropped. I wrote sections on highways, most of which were dropped. Other people on the team wrote other things. And then you just shove all of these groceries into the bag, and the grapefruits keep spilling out. So what's effective is when a president talks about things that people care about. Bill Clinton's States of the Union, they were terrible speeches, big messes. People loved them because he would just go through, and he tended to start with the things that were of interest to most people. And by the end of the speech, he was saying, and now to the Rodriguez family on 726 Maple Way. and that's really interesting to us.
So there's a connection there.
Yeah, so people want to hear that. But it is a big project. And one of the things I'm curious about with this next Trump State of the Union, I mean, the Trump White House is just a chaotic mess. And can they even do this, or do they, can they talk to people about things that people care about? We'll see.
So I'm just curious, traditionally, how does the process work? How far in advance does that foundation setting go, where you're reaching out to the various agencies and you're trying to decide? I mean, how far in advance of a State of the Union?
Different presidencies work in different ways. So George W. Bush really believed in an orderly process, so we would start about 3 months early. Bill Clinton's White House, they had a bigger staff, and he worked differently. It started, I think, not quite as far in advance. But in a way, I mean, a State of the Union is also like a budget. You could say, in a way, it starts a year in advance, because what everyone is trying to do throughout the government is shape what the agenda for the year ahead will be. And so ideas are being formulated, and then the task becomes at the end, can you produce some kind of coherence and order, not in order to make a good speech, who cares about that, but so that your next year will have some coherence and order to it.
So what is the traditional role of a State of the Union address for a president?
It's to put things on the national agenda. It's to remind people, if there are accomplishments, to pat oneself on the back, and then to assert command over Congress, because Congress always has things that it wants to do, and this is a chance for a president to introduce the president's priorities.
Given the age we live in now, social media, if you were sitting down to help write a State of the Union address, would you approach it differently?
Well, someday I think we will have to approach it very differently. So far, remember, the people who watch these things are older and more traditional. But I would be thinking very hard. I mean, not for this crew. For them, I recommend defense lawyers. But in a more normal administration, I would be thinking about that your subordinate bits. How do you make them shareable? And one thing, President Nixon, he was in trouble in Watergate. He didn't want to face Congress, and he came up with something that actually was a pretty good idea, which is he didn't deliver a State of the Union. I think it was 1973. He came up with 11 messages, which he released one by one. I suspect someday that's going to happen, and that we're going to think about this as shareable content, a way for the president to establish priorities, and there will be a section on food security and agriculture, and the president will still do the speech because you don't want to turn away the eyeballs, but there may be 3 sentences and then something that is highly shareable that's 3 or 4 paragraphs that gives you an idea of where do we stand on that. Retirement programs, 3 or 4 sentences may be in the speech. The speeches may tend to shrink, but the supporting material for Facebook and other things may tend to grow.
You joked about this a moment ago, but what advice would you have for President Trump's speechwriters?
I'm not going to. I wouldn't cross the street to talk to them.
There's nothing at all that you would hope they would keep in mind as they sit down to have the president address the nation?
You know, when people ask this question, it's like a child whose father always forgets her birthday. And it's like asking, what would you like your father to get you for your birthday this year? And we're just setting everybody up for heartache because he's going to forget your birthday again.
All right, then let me just ask you this final question. Given what you've spelled out in your book, given what you've talked about just now, how will you be evaluating President Trump's State of the Union address?
Are there signals here of greater or lesser danger for the country? Are we moving toward war with North Korea, which I very much fear we are? Are there any signs of that he understands the damage that is done by the incredible disrespect that he's showing to parts of the American family? And I will be listening for clues as to whether or not he feels so confident in his own power that he is going to try in the year ahead to stop the Mueller investigation and to shut down law enforcement even to a greater degree than he has.
David Frum, thank you again.
Thank you very much.